The NHS staff survey shows that bullying and harassment is a particular problem in the health sector. Now that's probably no surprise to anyone watching, but it is a shocking fact that 1 in 5 NHS staff reported personally having experienced harassment, bullying or abuse at work from colleagues in the last year alone. This needs to change. My name is Hugh Townsend. I am the BMA South East Coast Regional Coordinator. I cover Kent, Surrey and Sussex, and I'm also an Industrial Relations Officer in the region. Today I'm going to talk about challenging behaviour and how to beat it. As Industrial Relations Officer for East Kent Hospitals, I initially created this presentation to support ECHUF staff, but I know that currently 1 in every 200 member cases across the South East region is related to bullying. That is a lot of cases, and hence I've tried to keep most of the content broad enough to be of use to doctors across the region who may want to make use of the easy to share format via YouTube. I've also provided a half-hour version, it's a bit longer, which includes more details on this topic. That also has a self-assessment and there's a lot more detail about the process when you make a formal complaint. This is the bite-sized version that I know many of us will appreciate at this busy time. In this presentation, I'll briefly cover the terminology and legalities, something about trust policies, and then the crux of it, what to do if you are bullied or see bullying. And I'm going to end with a run through of some of the sources of support. I do have some thoughts on what organisations can do to challenge poor behaviour and encourage civility, but I'm afraid that is not the focus of this presentation. Anyone keen to know more about governance and organisational change, I'd really encourage you to look at the Sturrock report as well as the earlier Francis report. They've both got some really clear recommendations that will be very useful for trusts. There's also a great campaign called Civility Saves Lives, which I would highly commend to you. If you haven't seen it, then I'd suggest just Googling that, you'll find it quickly enough. So briefly, just a little on the terminology. So what is the difference between bullying, victimisation and harassment? They're all closely aligned, and in everyday language, bullying, victimisation and harassment can be used almost interchangeably to mean similar things. But in the Equality Act, victimisation and harassment have quite specific meanings, while bullying doesn't feature as a legal term at all. So first off, bullying is defined as offensive, intimidating, malicious or insulting behaviour, or it can be an abuse or misuse of power that is meant to undermine, humiliate or injure someone. Harassment is defined as unwanted conduct affecting the dignity of other employees in the workplace. And victimisation is subjecting a person to a detriment because they have complained, whether that's formally or otherwise, of bullying or harassment. What is important here is that if the actions or comments are viewed as demeaning and unacceptable to the recipient, then that's harassment. It's not the intention of the perpetrator, but it's the impact of the deed that matters. Whilst the title of this presentation was quite broad, I am going to focus today on bullying. ACAS defines several examples of bullying, and it could include, for example, spreading malicious rumours or ridiculing or demeaning a colleague. It could be as broad as unfair treatment or overbearing supervision, or it could be preventing you from progressing by intentionally blocking promotion or training opportunities. Often, bullies don't realise that their behaviour is bullying. Most people don't go to work to make their colleagues' lives difficult. Truly malicious behaviour is mercifully extremely rare. But it is very common for poor managers to slip into bullying behaviour without meaning to. This is particularly common under pressure, which unfortunately is a real constant in the NHS at the moment. And it's sadly worsened at trusts where finances are a particular challenge. What people find acceptable behaviour can vary widely, but as I said earlier, what matters is what the person on the receiving end of the behaviour feels, not what the bully thinks and feels. And that's the legal interpretation too. In the UK, bullying isn't against the law, but harassment is unlawful when it is related to one of the protected characteristics as set out in the 2010 Equality Act, and those are listed on the slide. So will you be supported if you raise a concern? The answer, I hope, is a resounding yes. But what I wanted to pick up on here are two relevant points to demonstrate how you'll be supported by your employer. The East Kent Staff Charter is a commitment to creating a positive culture where the contribution of every member of staff is respected, colleagues are treated fairly, and everyone is valued for our individuality and diversity. It was created in 2015, and there are similar charters across every trust in the NHS. Your staff charter raises important points and is worth taking note of. Arguably, the key message in all the charters I've seen is fairness and mutual respect. The importance of raising concerns and learning from mistakes is key. But the take-home message is that you should be supported to raise concerns and know that you have a right, even a responsibility to do so. Every trust will also have a policy on bullying and harassment in some form or other. Often it's called the Dignity at Work policy. Eckhoft has a comprehensive one that has just been updated at the Joint Staff Committee last month. It's available on the internet alongside a toolkit for managers. Now, it may sound obvious, but looking at your trust policy is a really good first place to look if you experience or witness bullying. So, what can you do if you observe bullying? Well, as I've said, you should definitely take some action if you see bullying or harassment going on. It's your responsibility as a colleague. That is something easier said than done. And many of us have a natural tendency to want to keep our head down, or we have a fear of standing alone or drawing attention to ourselves. Or else, we often assume or hope that someone else will do something about it. However, if you see behaviour and do nothing, the bullying is unfortunately likely to continue. So, let's say you've resolved to do something, but what? Well, unfortunately, there is no one-sized approach. Every situation is different and requires a different response. But often, the best course of action is to have a word with the person being bullied. This will at least reassure them that they're not on their own and that they have some support. You may be able to agree a way forward together. In some situations, it may be appropriate for you, as the observer, to approach the bully directly. But the success of that strategy may depend on how well you know the bully and how they may respond to what you'll tell them. This approach tends to be most effective with someone being inappropriate who's never considered that what they do or say can hurt other people. They're just not aware of their behaviour. The role of the observer is crucial to the proactive management of the working environment, and anything you do to start people talking and increasing awareness that there's a problem is likely to help both the receiver and the bully themselves. But do also seek advice and support from colleagues or professionals. Use your freedom to speak up guardian, check the trust policy on bullying or dignity at work, and consider all your options carefully. And what if you're on the receiving end of bullying behaviour? What should you do? Well, there are two main approaches: informal resolution and formal resolution. If you think you're being bullied or harassed or have concerns about respect at work, there are a number of informal routes to consider. You should spend some time thinking not just about what you want to do next, but also what you want as an outcome. Talking to someone you trust will help, maybe a friend, a colleague, or a BMA employment advisor. You may decide you can discuss your concerns with the person yourself. Similar to what I've just said in advice for someone witnessing this behaviour, it may be that that person just aren't aware that their behaviour is unwelcome or upsetting, and an informal discussion can help them to understand the effects of their behaviour and perhaps agree to change it. However, that's always going to be an extremely challenging thing to do. In the right circumstances, it may be all that's required. But if you take this approach, I'd suggest that you tell the person what behaviour you find offensive, perhaps with examples. Tell them the impact it has on you, and perhaps think about with them how they could approach this differently and the benefits of doing so to them and you and maybe your department. Perhaps you do want to speak to the bully directly, but you think the discussion could benefit from a mediator. And there are occasions when conflict between two people has gone on for so long that a positive discussion becomes difficult. Perhaps you feel the person in question is impossible and just doesn't listen, or perhaps they're much more confident and articulate than you, and you never feel you're able to put your point across. Whatever it is, if you feel that effective communication is not possible, and that you might be railroaded in the discussion, or you feel that you just need someone in the room who'll make sure that you're listened to, or give you a shoulder, then make use of some form of mediator. It could be a facilitator, such as a senior person that you trust in your department, or an independent mediator. Most trusts will have a pool of trained internal staff who are on hand to help facilitate conversations and resolve disputes. You can get more information from your HR department about those. The BMA can also offer trained mediators, and the BMA should be one of your first contacts. We can provide members with confidential advice and support and guide you through how to resolve your concerns. If you're unable to discuss the matter with the person concerned, yourself, then think about raising your complaint with your line manager or a member of the senior management team to explore other informal options. You don't need to go straight to the formal route. Perhaps you may want to discuss with a workplace contact. Many organisations have staff called workplace contacts who act as a listening ear to those who have concerns about respect at work. Their role will be to listen, to give emotional support and to signpost to appropriate action. It's an impartial and non-directive role. So lots of options. Whatever you decide to do, I'd also encourage you to keep a diary. If you later go down the formal route, this could be very helpful to provide evidence and also to remind you what happened. Whilst I would strongly encourage taking some action if you see or are the victim of bullying or harassment, I'd also urge you to be realistic in your expectations. It's not easy to raise concerns, and it's sometimes difficult to know what to do. If you raise a concern, you should always receive feedback, and you should never be victimised. If you feel you are victimised for raising concern, please do contact the BMA or your Freedom to Speak Up Guardian urgently. And remember, when you raise a concern, it's likely that you may need to continue working with the person for some time, so make sure you stay professional and polite throughout. If an informal approach does not resolve matters, or you or the management team thinks the situation is too serious to be dealt with informally, you can make a formal complaint under your trust bullying and harassment policy or the dignity at work policy. Often, and this is the process at East Kent, there is a bullying and harassment complaint form to be completed. I thought I'd mention here another option, if you believe colleagues may be in the same boat and perhaps the bully is more senior, is to provide a collective statement. You may find as a group you can support each other through the process, and you'll have an even stronger voice together. The BMA can help you to coordinate this, and if you're a member, I would advise you to get in touch either way to ensure you're guided through the process. So, what happens once you've completed the form? Well, once your form is submitted, the first step is an investigation. Your trust has a duty to investigate sensitively, promptly, and confidentially. Investigation of allegations will normally require limited disclosure on a need-to-know basis. Your identity and the nature of the allegations will be revealed to the person the complaint is about, so that they are able to respond to the allegations. Some detail may also have to be given to potential witnesses, but the importance of confidentiality will be emphasised to them. At the investigation stage, the trust will try to ensure that you and the alleged harasser or bully are not required to work together while the complaint is under investigation. Unfortunately, there's times when this proves difficult. A case manager and a case investigator will be appointed by a member of the care group senior management team, and they'll ask to meet you. You don't have to meet them, and should you choose not to attend a meeting, then the case investigator will conduct their investigation using the complaint form that you've submitted. Following that meeting, or just reading your form, the case investigator will carry out further investigation, which will usually involve meeting with any relevant witnesses as well as the alleged bully. So at this stage, you may be wondering about confidentiality. Well, the process is confidential, but it's also clear that a number of people are involved and do see the complaint. Where confidentiality is necessary, this will be explained, and it may not be just you that wants confidentiality, so remember that often witnesses will as well. And trust should help you with that. So, the investigation has completed. What happens next? Well, following that stage, then the case investigator will submit a report of their findings to the case manager. The case manager will consider the report and make a decision, and that will be whether to either uphold or not uphold the complaint of bullying and harassment, and whether there are any recommendations to make from that. If the case is not upheld, then the case investigator will write to all parties outlining this decision and whether or not further actions need to be put in place to support all parties moving forward. If the case is upheld, then the case investigator will write to the staff member the complaint was raised against. This should be in the form of a statement of case, which is presented by the case investigator at a formal disciplinary hearing. Any statements gathered or other evidence will be shared as part of that. Now, this part of the process must also be mindful of MHPS and the trust policy on that. At this stage, you as the complainant receive an outcome letter. If you're dissatisfied with the outcome, you can make a formal appeal of that. But it's worth noting that after the conclusion, the employer may take further disciplinary action against the bully. But your role has basically ended here, and you wouldn't necessarily be told that there was going to be a disciplinary action, and you wouldn't be told what the outcome of that was. At that stage, you'll just have to trust that the employer has taken appropriate action. It's important to mention here that all staff have a right not to be victimised for making a complaint in good faith, and that's even if the complaint is not upheld. Remember, you're not alone. There is a wealth of support available, and I'm going to try to cover just some of that now. However, there's generally so much support available and so many compassionate colleagues to turn to that I couldn't hope to cover it all. The following scratches the surface of available support, but I hope it is of some use. Some other options which could be taken alongside or instead of formal or informal approaches include using the EAP, the Employee Assistance Programme. Many organisations, including ECHAFT, have a staff welfare scheme called the EAP, which provides free 24/7 telephone support. Staff are also able to access the web-based service, which gives access to lots of information on physical and mental health. It can be quite useful. You'll find further details on your intranet. Sometimes it will help just to talk about your concerns. Perhaps contact the hospital chaplain. They're there for all staff to listen and provide support. Or else you could contact the wellbeing advisors via occupational health. For those that don't know, the Health and Wellbeing Service can support you to manage stress and anxiety, and they can help you to develop skills to manage difficult situations and feel emotionally stronger. Another option is just to self-refer to the occupational health nurse for confidential advice and support. And another very good avenue for advice is to speak to your Freedom to Speak Up guardian or champions if you have them. There's at least one in every trust, and they may be able to offer advice and at the very least signpost you to the best local support. If you're a junior doctor, then the Guardian of Safe Working could be another option. And as ever, don't forget the BMA. We're here to support you. As part of our programme of work to raise awareness of workplace bullying and harassment within the NHS, the BMA have done a lot of work to improve our support over recent years. We provide a number of services to help and advise doctors who are experiencing bullying at work, but also to those who have witnessed examples of bullying and wish to raise concerns. One of those options is perhaps talk to your local negotiating committee rep. Or often the first point of call is to contact our expert team of employment advisors who can ask the right questions to determine the correct route for your concerns. If you need emotional support, our counselling service is staffed by professional telephone counsellors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the peer support service runs alongside counselling, giving you, doctors and medical students in distress or difficulty the choice of speaking in confidence to another doctor. That's a confidential peer support service with an emotional focus, and it's open to BMA members and non-members. We also have a lot of practical guidance on what constitutes bullying and harassment. This covers what individual doctors can do to improve behaviour in the working environment, how to address poor behaviour, and what support is available for doctors who may be under pressure. There's a list of positive and negative behaviour examples which I found very interesting. The BMJ offers e-learning modules which are free for members. The modules provide insight and strategies to help you address bullying and harassment. And there's modules including preventing bullying and harassment, assertiveness in the workplace, the art of effective feedback, understanding resilience in the workplace, dealing with conflict, inclusion essentials, inclusive leadership, understanding unconscious bias, and the impact of micro behaviours. They all should be very helpful. We've also designed 2 posters to display in your workplace, one of which is on the slide. One highlights the issues, the extent of the problem and what the BMA is doing about bullying and harassment, and the other highlights the source of support available to BMA members. You can access all of the BMJ modules, the guidance, and you can download the posters on the website. The link is here on the slide. If you wanted to do some further reading, you can also find out more about challenging behaviours with books and ebooks from the BMA library. Here is the BMA number for our counselling service, our employment advice service, and also the link to our guidance pages again. Please do get in touch if you have any questions. So my key messages today: by playing our part, we can create a working environment in which everyone is treated with the dignity and respect that you deserve. In a harassment situation, there are often 3 players: the actor, who is bullying someone, the receiver, who is being bullied, and the observer, who sees the bad behaviour. Dealing with inappropriate behaviour really requires all 3 to take responsibility. So the actor, the bully, needs to be aware of the effects of their behaviour and the potential repercussions for their career. I have today explained that there are many factors that can contribute to unacceptable behaviour. That can include financial pressures, family issues, health issues, and at the moment, because of increasing demands on services, many doctors and other NHS staff do face massive added pressure, stress and exhaustion through work, which has the potential to impact on how we behave. But there is help available, and it's up to you to seek the relevant support by talking to someone. The second player in this is the receiver, and they need to take action. If you're bullied, make an assertive response or take the matter up through the relevant channels in your organisation. And the observer. If you witness bullying behaviour, then you need to offer support and, if appropriate, challenge the bully over their behaviour. So my key message today: if you see bad behaviour or receive bad behaviour, please seek advice and take some action. I hope that has been helpful. Thanks to my colleagues Ruth and Letty for their input to that presentation. And remember, if you see bad behaviour or if you receive bad behaviour, please seek advice and do take some action.